As some people are filing in for the session, first of all, thank you for joining me and joining us today. This is going to be a deep dive into GitBook, so hopefully everyone's in the right room. It isn't necessarily interactive, but feel free to open up GitBook. You can head to gitbook.com and sign up for a free account. If you want to kind of follow along, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, you can just sit back, watch, and I'll leave some time at the end for some questions. If you have any questions, we can definitely go into them and dive into it. But this whole session should definitely give you a big understanding about what GitBook is, what problems we are building this tool to solve, and just hopefully get a better idea on some of the things you can do with it in general. So first, an introduction. My name is Addison. I run our developer relations team at GitBook. I've been at the company for the last 2 years and have been really focused on extending the use cases of GitBook through our integration platform and just through some different use cases of documenting your projects as a whole. Most recently, I've helped work on a lot of the open source angles at GitBook, which we can talk about a little bit later and show you a little bit later afterwards. But yeah, overall, really excited to be here. Hopefully you've all been enjoying the conference so far, and hopefully you're not too tired after lunch to fall asleep during the session. So what is GitBook if you aren't familiar with it? We are a platform for documenting your projects. What kind of documentation? You can do API docs, product docs, really any sort of just technical documentation in general. As I mentioned before, we do have a free tier and it is free to join. And some of the features I am going to cover are going to be a part of our paid tiers. But I also do want to mention being at an open source conference, if you are working on an open source project, feel free to head from our website to the open source section down here. We actually give you, if you're working on an open source project, all of our paid features completely free of charge. So the highest tier for free. Head here, you can sign up for it, learn a little bit more about it, and get started from here. And again, some of the features that I'm going to demo and use today are part of these plans. Yeah, we can keep it interactive if you have a question.
Is it possible to use GitBook without dealing with GitBook? Like, is it possible to just run it on your thing without
Having to log on? Right now it isn't because, and you'll see a little bit more about that once we kind of hop into the app. Yeah, I'll ask that question in about 30 minutes and see if it makes sense, but not necessarily, but there are parts of it that you can. Let's give a quick lay of the land and familiarize yourself with GitBook and how to use it and what you can get with it. So this is the GitBook interface. This is the GitBook editor. This is where you're going to be working and doing most of your work for the content, for the styling, the customization, etc. After you publish your docs, you could end up with something like this. This is our official documentation for GitBook. You'll see that we have customized things like the sidebar, icons, colors, links at the top. But we also have some more features that are built into GitBook right off the bat, like analytics, feedback, which we'll explore how that looks like in the editor side of things in just a bit. And this little button called Edit on GitHub. And this is because I've actually synced this with a GitHub repository, which means we can tap into a lot of some of the more like advanced workflow features, like CI/CD workflows, which I think is why a lot of you are here. So we'll dive into that a little bit as well. But yeah, this is kind of what you're going to end up with, hopefully, once you start using GitBook. One last thing I want to highlight as well is some of the more interactive features that you'll see with this. So outside of the markdown that you're able to write and import into GitBook, we do have more interactive blocks like embedded videos and embedded integrations. You can explore all of the blocks through our own documentation here. So a lot of the top ones are more just markdown and examples of what they look like when they're rendered. But if you head down to the bottom, we have some of the more built-in advanced ones like steppers, drawings, expandable sections, but also open API methods, which is also supported by one of our partners, Scalar, which is an API client for testing your APIs. So if you do hook up or sync an open API spec, it will probably look something like this, where you'll have the body, any options, authorizations, if any. Request examples, response examples, but my favorite part is we have a built-in test it functionality as well. So if you go ahead and add your open API file and reference here, your users will be able to test your APIs right from the docs, which is super helpful. Okay, so now that we know what it could look like once you go ahead and publish your docs, what does it look like when we're building them? And that's what the majority of this session is going to be like. So this is the editor when you go ahead and hop in. And as a quick lay of the land, we have our organizations up here in the left. Most likely you'll probably have one, so this is just the one that I'm working on. We do have a functionality to ask or search. We do have built-in GitBook AI to ask human questions to on your documentation and the things and the content you have inside of here, or just search for a space or the content that you're looking for. But then also in the sidebar, we have the home, where you can see recently edited spaces by you or your colleagues, some more information about just using GitBook, integrations, some more kind of learning materials. But then you'll also see this section here, Docs Sites. And this is going to be the section that you're going to use when you are publishing a new docs site. So I currently with this organization have two different ones, appropriately named My New Site, and then also a fake documentation that I had created earlier called Syncly. You can create as many sites as you want per paid plan. And we're going to build a new site from scratch today and kind of look at the process of what it would be like to get your own docs up and running. But the other thing that I want to mention is those doc sites are also going to be represented here in the sidebar. And underneath that, you'll see something called spaces. Now, a space is basically a section for your content, and you'll link a space to a docs site. Again, we'll see how this looks like in just a minute. But to go ahead and get started, let's start and build a new doc site. So the first thing I'm going to do is head to the doc sites in the sidebar, and we'll go ahead and add a new site. Let's call this All Things Open site. Head to the next step. We have starter sample content here. You can also start from like a blank canvas if you want to write your own. And you're also able to import, as I mentioned, your content from GitHub or GitLab. If you have them as a markdown file somewhere else, you can go ahead and import that. We'll visit that in just a second. The first thing I want to do is actually just start with the sample content, and we'll see what that looks like off the bat. I'm also going to publish later because I want to show you what some of the options are for customizing and the settings that you get for publishing these. So we'll go ahead and create the site. Right now, we don't have an integration for Bitbucket, but I did see in Slack that I think we were about to build one, so might be soon. But right now, unfortunately, it's not. So we've created a new site. It's not published right now. You can see that right here. And you can see this new doc site was created up here at the top. And if we open up our spaces, we now also have a space called ATO site, which is where all the content is going to be located. So the doc site, you can think about all the customization for the styling, the custom domain, the layout, etc. And the space is going to be the content. So from the content side of things, if we want to go ahead and explore it and see what's in there, minimize the sidebar. You'll see a header for the title. I normally like to rename this and do something like content to make it a little bit more clear on what you're looking for. This icon is just an icon in the sidebar to help you identify it a little bit easier. And inside of this space, we have different pages. And again, you can think of one space as one doc site. So from this doc site that we have a couple different pages, and we have a couple different sections as well. If we head back to the doc site itself, we can customize a few more things like the look and feel, add a little bit extra security, and we'll also see our insights here as well. We'll revisit that once we publish this because this should start to generate some insights for us after it's live. But what I'm going to do is publish this right off the bat. And now it's live. And if we go ahead and visit it here, we should see a little bit more about it. So again, this is just the published version of the content that we can edit. Yep. You can use your own domain, yeah. So we can head to the domain section. It's a great segue because from the doc site's overview panel and page here, you can always head to the settings section, and this is where you're going to configure a lot of the information for your site itself. So the first thing that I want to point out is the audience here. By default, it's going to be published as publicly. So again, if any of you want to go to gitbook.webinars.gitbook/ato-site, you'll see this live. And if you all go to it, we should start to see those analytics pour in. But you can also change it to share links, which is going to be a private randomized link that will expire after, I believe, like 21 days. I think you can set how long it expires. From the public side of things, you can also unindex it as well if you don't want it to appear in search engines. But the cool part as well that we also offer is a visitor authentication section. So for those of you who are working on like internal docs and you still want them to be shareable and findable, you can use this option here, which will basically allow you to set up a login screen for the docs that are here. So if you're using any SSO providers, you can have a custom one, or actually, let me go to our integrations page. We also have visitor authentication, sign-in options for Auth0, AWS, Azure, Okta, and just really anything that uses the OpenID Connect protocol here as well. So you can hide all of this stuff behind a login wall if that's applicable for you. But we're just going to keep it public for now. We can explore those a little bit later. To answer your question, you can also set up your custom domains here as well. You can also edit the slug or the URL for this specific site. I'm just going to leave it as this one right now. But you'll also see options for updating the site structure, which you can add things like variants, and you can also add things like sections. We're going to revisit that a little bit later, but this is where you're going to add things like new translations, new versions of your products, or just new products itself. So these will appear as, if you take a look at our docs, we have the documentation and change log. Those are using the sections here. But the variants will appear as a little drop-down menu here and let you change like V1, V2, or like I said, you'll have options for languages if that's what you prefer. So you can set it up a couple different ways. What you're also able to do from this section is add customization. So we can head to the Customize panel. You can add a title and an icon, and this is going to be the favicon up in the top. So we can add an image if you want. I'm just going to do something fun, maybe like this. And we'll also call it like ATO Workshop. And again, this is what's going to appear in the favicon and up at the browser top window up here. What you're also able to do is add a custom logo, which will replace this, this section here. And then this will just, again, show at the top of the browser. I'm going to skip over that for now, but you're welcome to add a light mode and dark mode for yourself as well. And set a different theme too. So we can also set a primary color. Yeah, I don't know. We can just change this to something fun for now. And then also change the type of theme too, whether it's bold, contrast, custom, or something else. So there's a lot of different options for this. And you can play around with this to hopefully match the theme of your GitBook site to whatever your theme is. Heading down a few more options as well, you're able to toggle the mode. So if you want to allow people to change it from light to dark or the system and have a default there as well. You're also able to change the fonts as well to a number of different ones here. Right now we only support a number of the ones that you'll find here, but you can find that here. You can also update the icons that you find from Font Awesome is the icons that we use here, but you can change the type here, corner style of the cards and other items like the search box and stuff that you'll find here, and the background as well. We also have an option to match the theme like this. I don't think that looks super nice. I also realize that these colors are kind of random as well, but that's not the main focus of this right now. From here as well, you're also able to add a layout. So you're also able to add the links that you find in the header. So we can have something like home page. This could go to gitbook.com. And if you want it as a link, which is fine, But we also have an option to not add it as a link. You can also add it as a button. So you can also have something like sign up. And this could be, well, just do just this again. And then we can do this as like a primary button, which is then going to appear as a button here following the primary colors that you set before. For the layout, you can also add pagination as well. So at the bottom, you'll see here it says next quick start, which will just follow the structure of the content that you have here. You can turn that off. You can also add a footer as well, which will allow you to do a few footer links, copyright text, and also the logo here. Last but not least, the configuration of the site as well. We do have the options to localize the user interface. And this is what's going to show up in the things like the ask and search bar here, the powered by, any of the actual UI of the GitBook content, but not the content that you're putting on here. I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. So this is just purely the GitBook UI side of things. You're also able to add a edit on GitHub or GitLab button, which we saw before and which I'll cover in just a minute, and then also the privacy policy URL. And once you're ready, you can save all of that. And once that's all good, you can go ahead and view those on the site. And let's see if it might take a little bit to update. See if we clear the cache and we see all of those updates here. A few other customization options that you can also do. You can enable AI search, which will allow your users to also ask questions against your documentation. It comes up with a list of recommended questions that you can ask as well. After just a second, we can allow your users to add PDF export and also enable page ratings, which will add into those insights that we saw before from the main docs page before. You're also able to update the social previews. So when you share a link and it unfurls on social media or somewhere else, you'll be able to set what image is going to show there. And then at the bottom, unpublished site and delete site. And we'll also take a look at this ad sponsorship towards the end. We'll get back to that. A few more things as well. You're also able to check out permissions against the site as well. So we'll see who has access to this site as well and who can change settings. So this might be important for you in your organization. You can set all of these options inside of your organization settings down here. We're not going to touch on that too much today, but you can head here and update all the permissions for each specific site, each specific space and the content and who can edit what. And I'm sure we probably don't have any insights just yet. This might take a little bit longer to populate, but yeah, we can see a lot of the customization options that we have here for the site itself. Any questions so far on like the publishing side of things? Cool. So now that we know how to publish our site, let's take a look at the content side of things and what we can do there. In order to do that, again, we can go back to the sidebar and head to the content in the space. And one of the things that I want to mention is because this space is published, you'll notice I can't just like double click on something here and edit any of the content here. And the reason being is in order to work in GitBook, and one of the reasons that we call it GitBook in the first place, is if you want to edit any content, we work off the notion of how you might work in Git. If you want to edit anything, you'll have to first edit in something called a change request. You can think of a change request as a pull request or a branch. And once we go ahead and create a new change request, we can do the first step by naming it. So we can say like update homepage. And this is going to show up as a commit message in GitHub or GitLab, which we'll also visit in just a second. But now I'm in edit mode, so I can make any of these changes. I can do whatever I'd like. If I go ahead and enter a new page, we can do a few different things. We can go ahead and just type. We also support Markdown if I go ahead and add two number signs there. Or if I hit the slash key, you'll see a number of different commands on what you can insert or what you can do here. Again, we have a number of different basic blocks following Markdown. We also have a little bit more advanced blocks though as well, like inserting different files, images, tables, cards, which are more of the interactive kind of options, insert drawings, where if you want to go ahead and add something in here, it'll show up as a drawing inside of the publish section. Let me scroll down a bit. But we also have a number of different integrations and also some quick starts for like API references and multi-syntax codes. Number of embeds as well. You can embed pretty much anything that is possible to be embedded. And all of this will be rendered inside of the publish section inside of GitBook as well. But one of the main things that I want to focus on is actually the introduction of AI and how we use that inside of GitBook as well. So not only can I insert and just type some blocks through Markdown, but I can also write with AI. I can do something like continue writing this paragraph, explain this, summarize this, or write a paragraph about a welcome message for a fictional product called ATO. And let's see what it comes up with. And if you'd like that, you can continue writing it, make it shorter, or just add it in here. But the other part that's also pretty cool is not only can it go ahead and generate something like this, you can also improve the writing, fix spelling and grammar, make it shorter, simplify the language, change the tone, or even translate it as well. So we can translate to something like Japanese. That's a great question. Right now we don't, but we are working on bringing that to this through this. So right now it is going to be per page, and you'd have to highlight and translate. But one of the things that we want to do in the very near future is allow you to just translate your docs as you have them. I will show you some alternatives and some options on what you can do in the meantime. But just as a quick overview right now, that's not technically possible. Let's go ahead and add though real quick like a hint, and let's go ahead as like welcome to V1 of our docs. But what I want to do is actually use another feature, part of our editing experience, called reusable content. We've also just launched this last week, so you should be able to find it inside of the editor at this point as well. But after I highlight this, I can press Command-C and turn this into something called reusable content. And this is going to add it as a block to this reusable content section. And on any other page inside of this, I can head maybe to the quick start, head to this, and I can go ahead and just drag this in. And whenever I go ahead and edit this, this is going to update across all of my docs. So if you are working on things that need like a warning or reusable versioning, as you see here, this would be the best way to go ahead and do this. You can also add reusable content from this menu up at the top. But now that we have just a little bit of a demo on how that looks, we can go ahead and start to see how we can merge this in. A few other things that I want to mention though, just in case you are curious about what else you can edit and some of the things. We do have page options as well. So right now I'm on the welcome page, and if I hover right over the title, you'll see the page options here. You can edit the page layout, and the layout preset is going to allow you to, well, it's going to default some of these options here. So I can either put it like editorial, where it's going to be a full page, a landing page where it's going to remove some items like the sidebar. But the docs page is going to be like this. And you can also toggle them on or off depending on how you'd like it. But you can also update the visibility of the pages as well. So if you are working on any pages that you don't want to be merged right away, you can also hide it. They'll still be able to be navigated to, but you can also toggle like the indexing. So if it's even found, and basically just be able to get to it via direct link. So this is really good for features if you want some feedback on them, but you don't want people to find them, etc. A couple other features that we do have, because we are inside of this like editing context of a page, we do have ability to view changes as well. So you can view the changes of all the pages and see what was changed in a very similar format to what you might find inside of like GitHub or through a change editor. You can also do like just the changes to see what has been modified, etc. But you're also able to leave comments on a space or on side of a page, or even just a block as well. So if you are working with teammates, you'll be able to have discussions and have a back and forth on this change requests before it's being merged. We also launched a new feature as well that will allow you to view and fix broken links in here. So if you are working on like a really large documentation set and some of the links inside of here have been broken, moved, this will help you find any of those. So then when you ship this and actually merge it, nothing will be broken. Little caveat on this isn't going to fix broken links from external resources, but only internal resources within your own docs. Finally, you can go ahead and preview these changes as well. So you'll get a little, just a preview of what this is going to look like. And you can send this off for feedback with your team, just to have a little bit better of a look inside of the context there. But once you're ready to go ahead and merge it, you can finally request a review from your team. I'm the only one inside of this team, so I'm going to just merge to main directly. And once this is merged in, this is going to go live on the official URL that you'll see over here, which it's already live. Any questions? I think I saw a few. Sorry? That is not possible right now. No, you do need to write inside of here. Yeah, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just a sec. In the front. Not all of it right now, most of it. I think, sorry? Those are definitely supported at this point, yeah. This is Markdown, yeah, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. 1 sec in the back. Yes, yeah, we'll take a look. I would say right now, no. But I also, as I mentioned, sync blocks is a pretty new feature for us. And I think as we see more people using it for like a lot of these bigger and larger use cases, that could definitely be something that would be considered for us, definitely. You in the front?
What would you say are the best use cases for this? Is it mostly for simple static websites, or do you see this working for all websites?
I would say the biggest use case is public documentation, API docs, that kind of stuff. I don't think a lot of people would publish like a website on this, although we have seen people write guides, docs, blogs, and stuff on this in the past, definitely. You in the back? Let me head to the next section here, because you'll see kind of some of the output on like the Markdown and what we get from this. Cool. Let's keep going, and then we'll leave a bit of time hopefully at the end, because I just want to finish at least this next part here. So right now we've just been using GitBook to publish our documentation and customize it and use the edits. But one of our main features that we call is Git sync. And what this allows you to do is sync up a GitHub or GitLab repository and be able to see all of the files and edit your files in either of the providers that you have. What I'm going to do is use GitHub for this, and I'm actually going to create a new repository for this. So give me just 1 second. I'll make this public, and this should be fine. And ATL workshop. Once I have that created, what I'm going to do is enable GitHub sync. I'll have to configure this and log in with some of my GitHub credentials. And now we'll be able to select a repo. After that, we'll be able to select a branch. Because this hasn't been created, I'm just going to create a new one called main. If you are working in a mono repo, if your docs are a part of like a larger project, you can point it to a specific directory in the repository. And also add things like custom templates and preview requests on forks, which we're going to skip over for now. But you can definitely read our docs to learn a little bit more about this. But the most important thing that I want to mention is this last part, the initial sync, because you can see here is that you can sync your docs from GitHub to GitBook or GitBook to GitHub. So this is important. If you already have your docs in Markdown on GitHub or GitLab, you can basically choose this first option, and this is going to overwrite everything in GitBook with whatever you have in GitHub. So this whole like first part of like editing and creating the content, what you'd rather do instead is create no content at first, import it, and it would overwrite it. But because I have no content in GitHub and I have it in GitBook, I'm going to choose the second option and sync this together. This is also important because this is only the first step in this. So it will basically only overwrite it at first. After this is done, the sync is going to go both ways. So what that means is if I make a change inside of GitHub, that change is going to be reflected in GitBook. And if I make a change in GitBook, that change is going to be reflected in GitHub. And now that we have this, we can view the space. I can also refresh this. And you'll see that I have all of the content now represented as Markdown inside of here. Any questions on this so far? I think we had some. Go for it. Right now, they are separate. So the change requests that you make inside of GitBook are going to be isolated until merged. Once that's merged, it will appear as a commit inside of GitHub. And the pull requests that you make in GitHub are also isolated from the change requests inside of GitBook, but will appear once as history commits once the PR has been merged to main or whatever branch that you point it to. We definitely have plans to merge those in the future, so any change requests that you make will appear as pull requests. I know that's a really common request for us, so we want to enable that. If you're in here, you can view any open change requests inside of here. So you'll see any open ones from yourself, from anyone else, and vice versa. And what's kind of cool is let me actually start a new change request here. And we're going to say change to. But I'm not going to do anything to it here. And let me now head over to this repository here. So what you can also do is clone this, have this locally. And what you can do is also make changes to this. So I'm going to head to the README, and we can go ahead and make some changes. Let me go ahead and do this. You'll also see all of the, in the front matter here, a lot of information about like the cover and more kind of GitBook specific kind of things. But you'll also see the Markdown that is generated here. One of the things that I do want to highlight, though, is for some of the more advanced blocks, and you did see me add a synced block or a reusable block before, these are referenced in a Markdown file using liquid templating for the specific block that we have. Some of the more advanced ones as well will be represented like this. But if it's representable in Markdown, it will be represented in Markdown here as well. But let me go ahead and just add a new line. I realize I have only about 10 minutes, so I'm just going to do this here. We'll commit the changes, new update, and let's create a new branch for this here. But one of the reasons that I want to highlight this workflow is because inside of this change request and inside of GitHub specifically, let's do just test. Inside of this pull request, you're able to tap into things like GitHub Actions or any other CI/CD workflow that might run and run updates against this kind of information that's being generated. So let's go ahead and, wait here. Off the bat, GitBook will have some checks that will run against this as well. The checks is basically going to generate that content live. It's going to show you the content inside of GitBook. But it's also going to show you the, it's also going to show you a, where did it go here? It's also going to show you that preview that I showed you before as well. So we'll be able to see that in the context of it. This is what I wanted to mention before as well, though. It will show you that revision inside of the editor saying like, hey, this is the thing that I added, but this isn't yet tied to a change request that we looked at before. So we do want to unify that, but you can see these changes here. After we merge this, though, what this is going to do is merge this back to the main branch. It will go live inside of here. Once that goes live, it might just take a second. Let me just do something like this. And we'll just wait another second for that. But what I also want to mention, oh, this already happened, but this basically just ran a sync, and now we see the hello is inside of this main branch here. But if you also remember, I had that change request from before that I started before I went and made the pull request inside of the Gitbook side of things. So if I head back inside of here, you'll also see that this also now has something that's giving me a message saying, hey, this change request is out of date because the main branch has updated. This won't have any merge conflicts because it was a simple update, but there are chances that the content might be out of date, and it will ask you to resolve the merge conflicts that you run into. Gitbook has a fully built-in conflict editor inside of here, so you will be able to go through line by line or basically choose a commit to replace everything. And you can do that right within the editor here. If that happens inside of GitHub or GitLab, you'll basically follow the normal resolution for the merge conflicts this way. And then we can merge this in afterwards, which hasn't really done anything because it just tidied everything up. Okay, I have about 10 minutes left, and I think there's quite a lot of questions, so let's go ahead and go through some. Well, it depends. If they do know how to use the command line and would prefer editing in this kind of experience, as long as they have permissions to read and write to a repository like this, they could go ahead and do it right through GitHub. No, but they would be able to, in the pull request, if you saw this, they had the checks that were going. It was part of the PR. They would be able to view that preview, but they wouldn't be able to access the content inside of Gitbook. So there was two different links. The one that went to Gitbook, and one that went to the preview. They would be able to see the preview, but they wouldn't be able to see the editor experience. When they click the link, it would say they don't have access to, unless they had an account with Gitbook that was part of your team. Oh yeah, they might be inside. Yeah, so yeah, basically these. Yeah, thank you.
But they can't use any of the features of GitBook to change everything besides just basic.
That's correct. Yeah, they would need the actual. Yeah, that's correct.
So do we have the hierarchical representation of the document in the Gitbook?
So this is all represented inside of the code inside of this file called summary MD, which is basically the table of contents here. So this is what's represented in the actual table of contents on the side. Is that what you're asking?
So can I make multiple documents within one document that can make multiple documents in the Gitbook?
So inside of here, if you want to have multiple different docs sites, you would head back to the settings inside of the site structure, and you would link this to different spaces. And because it's a different space, that space would be linked to a different GitHub repository or a different branch inside of that. So you could, it wouldn't make sense to have two different spaces pointed to the same GitHub repository, because once one's updated, it would automatically update the other, so effectively making them the same content. The app, so it's essentially there is a Gitbook app for GitHub, and as long as that could be approved for the enterprise, it should work. Yeah, in the back. Yep. Right now it is only GitHub and GitLab, but there was someone else that asked about Bitbucket, which is on the radar for us. I won't say we're actively working on it, but it is being considered by our team right now. Yeah, it should already work for that, yeah. Yeah, that's actually a great segue to kind of talk about more of the open source parts of GitBook as well. The first thing that I want to, oops, not that one. The first thing that I want to mention is this here, which is our open source repository for GitBook, which is the rendering engine of it, so the front end of this. So all of the things that you see that renders this information, this whole rendering portion is open source, and you are all welcome to contribute to it as well. So this would include the rendering of all the blocks that we have. It would include if you want to add additional blocks to it as well, or if you want to take this and use it yourself. All you have to do is point this to a GitHub or GitBook section here. So the content part of it, you would still have to use the app, which is the SaaS platform, but how that's displayed inside of the documentation site that you've published could be up to you. And you could host this yourself. You could go from there and kind of render it how you'd like. Sorry? So this one right now only, so this version, if you run this locally, it pulls in the information from the GitBook API that's pulling from your space inside of here. So it doesn't run from the local versions of the information there. It pulls from the stuff that you have inside of this part here, or basically inside of this content here. The other part of it, though, if you are interested as well, not only is the this part open source, but we also have an integration platform as well. So I did kind of mention a number of the integrations that have been built on top of the platform already. But if you are interested in building your own, this is also completely open source as well. And you can all go ahead and create integrations for any of the services that you're using. You can view our API, you can view our SDK, and also we have all of this information at developer.gitbook.com if you're interested in learning more about contributing, but also to just build your own with GitBook. I think this is towards the end, and also would love to answer more questions. I do want to mention we do have a booth right at the front, so if this was interesting and you want to chat more, feel free to visit us at the booth, and happy to answer some questions from there. But thank you all for coming.